Wano arc is finally reaching its conclusion, and the final phase of this epic battle is underway. As the Straw Hat crew enters Wano's sea territory, Luffy tightly grabs the near sea carps and tries to cross the massive waterfall, but bad luck strikes. A dangerous whirlpool engulfs the entire crew. When Luffy regains consciousness, he realizes he has been separated. He is now lying on Kuri's shore. Checking his hat, Luffy relaxes a bit, but the rest of the crew is nowhere to be seen. Just then, Wano's thugs, mistaking Luffy for an outsider, attack him. However, Luffy easily defeats them and saves a little girl, Otama. Otama has a special power. She can create dango from her cheeks, which allows her to control animals. She gives one to a giant animal, which instantly becomes her pet. Seeing all this, Otama becomes a fan of Luffy and invites him to her home for dinner. Luffy hides the Sunny in a safe place and follows Otama through a dense bamboo forest to reach her house. Otama dreams of becoming a great kunoichi, but Luffy casually remarks, "Got it, you'll become Hokage." In her small, dirty, and old hut, Otama serves Luffy only a bowl of white rice and cucumber pickles, the last food in her home. Luffy quickly finishes the rice, but when he asks for more, Otama lies, saying she is a ninja and doesn't eat much. Luffy realizes Otama is hungry, so he pretends he is already full. Soon after, Otama, unable to bear her hunger, goes to drink water. Just then, her sensei, Hitetsu, returns and attacks Luffy without thinking, assuming Luffy stole Otama's food. The truth is revealed. Otama has been starving for days, surviving by selling her poor-quality burnt hats. Today is her birthday, and Hitetsu had planned to give her a proper meal, but Luffy unknowingly ate it. However, an even bigger twist emerges. Otama was waiting for someone else, a pirate she considered her hero, Ace. Luffy is shocked. His face turns serious, and he calmly says Ace is dead. Hearing this, Otama is shattered. She cries uncontrollably and faints from emotional stress. Luffy decides to take Otama to a doctor. If he finds any of his crew by night, they can get her treated and even eat for free. Hitetsu gives Luffy a kimono, and just before leaving, Luffy's eyes fall on a sword. Not just any sword, but one of the world's legendary blades, Nidai Katetsu. Without hesitation, Luffy takes it. Hitetsu is shocked, but Luffy promises to protect Otama. As Luffy and Otama are about to leave, Hitetsu yells, "I've lost my money, and now my sword! This is a total loss!" Then the dog yokai, Komachio, runs at full speed toward the town. On the way, Otama regains consciousness, and as soon as she sees Luffy, tears roll down her eyes. Angrily, she asks, "How can you talk about Ace so coldly?" Luffy remains silent but understands her pain. Soon, the bamboo forest ends, revealing a scary wasteland, only desert, dust, and frozen skeletons everywhere. Luffy sees wild animals running, and his appetite flares up instantly. But Otama warns him that they are all poisoned from drinking polluted water. Otama's fever worsens, and time is running out. Luffy speeds up, and after a while, they see a samurai cutting down two men. On closer look, it's none other than Zoro. Seeing Zoro after so long, Luffy is thrilled and starts talking about how amazing the whole Cake Island's cake was. Zoro says nothing and simply throws a piece of meat toward Luffy, which he instantly devours. But just then, Hawkins arrives with his army. This isn't just a discussion anymore, it's a battle. Luffy smirks and says, "I'll apologize later, but for now, I just need to fight." Hawkins pulls out his tarot cards and calculates. If they fight now, his chance of losing is 98%. But he remains unfazed because, according to his prediction, Luffy's survival rate will drop to just 19% in a month. Hawkins tries to intimidate Luffy by mentioning Kaido, but Luffy coolly replies, "I know, I'm here to defeat all four Yonko." Zoro immediately reminds Luffy not to say things like that, and for a second, Luffy hesitates. But then Zoro notices Luffy's new sword, which is emitting a dark energy. Zoro asks to see it. "Let me take a look." Luffy outright refuses. A sword is a samurai's soul. Zoro chuckles and says, "All right, just lend it to me for a bit after the fight." Hawkins' minions attack, and Luffy instantly takes them down with a rubber pistol. Half of them are down in a second. Luffy realizes he hasn't even needed the sword yet. It's just for decoration. Just then, Hawkins unsheathes his sword, and Zoro, wasting no time, slices half of Hawkins' face with a single strike, but it has no effect. One of Hawkins' men dies instead. Using his straw magic, Hawkins summons a massive straw demon, Shaman no Zu. Meanwhile, Otama's condition worsens. Zoro tells Luffy to take Otama and leave immediately. Within a few strikes, Zoro slices the straw demon in half, forcing Hawkins to retreat temporarily. Komachio runs at full speed, but soon they reach a dead end. The dog looks around, confused. Zoro suggests going right, but suddenly, a woman's voice says, "Go left." On closer look, the woman Zoro had just saved is already sitting on the dog. Her name is Tsuru, and she owns a tea house. Tsuru says she knows Otama and can treat her because her tea house has a special herb that can counteract the poisoned water. Luffy and Zoro follow her to a small village in Kuri, a poverty-stricken area. At the tea house, Tsuru lets Otama rest and prepares herbal tea for her. Soon, Otama's fever subsides. Tsuru warns her never to drink dirty water again. When Otama's pet starts crying from hunger, Tsuru prepares a special sweet red bean soup for it. Otama looks at the bowl with love and slowly tastes it, tears streaming streaming down her face. She says, "I've never eaten anything this good. This is my best birthday ever. Ever." Luffy and Tsuru smile at her, but Tsuru's eyes well up, thinking of all the children in this land who are starving. In reality, Wano has good food and clean water, but only the elites have access to it. The mountain visible in the distance once housed Odin Castle. Beneath it was a vast farming land created by Odin for Wano's people. But now, the entire area is controlled by Kaido and Orochi, and only they enjoy good food. The rest survive on rotten leftovers from officials, which is why this place is called Leftover Town. Suddenly, an arrow flies through the air, heading straight for Tsuru, but Zoro quickly blocks it with his sword. The attacker is none other than Wano's elite fighter, Six King's deputy, Kyoshiro. He starts raining arrows, but Luffy and Zoro block them all. Just then, Holdem's men arrive and snatch Otama. Luffy and Zoro immediately chase after them, but Kyoshiro keeps slowing them down with his arrows. At that moment, Okiku unsheathes her sword, jumps onto the dog, and declares, "I'm going after them." Luffy and Zoro also jump onto the dog as Kyoshiro continues firing arrows at them. Luffy takes a powerful leap and directly attacks Kyoshiro. Kyoshiro used his haki and forced Luffy to step back, but after that, he left the scene. Okiku took out her notes and analyzed that Holdem's men must have taken Otama to Bakura Town. That place was home to officials and Kaido's pirates. The leaders there were Hawkins, Holdem, and Speed, along with 30 more of Kaido's men who were artificial devil fruit users. It didn't take long before Luffy, Zoro, and their companions arrived at Bakura Town, a place that served as a base only for high-ranking officials and Kaido's pirates. Okiku warned, "This place is extremely dangerous. I can't guarantee your safety." But hearing that only made Luffy and Zoro even more excited. Their thrill escalated. Meanwhile, Otama was taken to Holdem by Speed and her men. Holdem had heard that Otama had tamed Hai-He, Flying Horse, so he assumed she possessed a devil fruit power. He decided to make use of Otama's abilities. To force her into submission, Holdem ordered his men to pull her mouth wide open with a large pair of pliers. At the same time, Luffy, Zoro, and Okiku encountered some Ronin at the entrance of Bakura Town. Without wasting a second, Luffy used his Conqueror's Haki, knocking them all out in one go. Then they stormed into town. Inside, there were many people, but most of them were Orochi's men. Getting any information about Otama from them was nearly impossible. Suddenly, a grand sumo tournament was taking place. The champion was none other than Urashima, who had been eyeing Okiku for a while. As soon as Luffy and Zoro arrived, Urashima threatened to forcefully make Okiku his wife. Zoro and Luffy easily took down Urashima's men, but then Okiku was dragged into the center of the sumo ring. Zoro deliberately didn't react because his instincts told him that Okiku wasn't an ordinary girl. And he was right. When Urashima tried to lay a hand on her, Okiku sliced off his top knot with a single sword strike, a move only a true warrior could perform in Wano. Enraged, Urashima launched a full power attack on Okiku, but Luffy stepped in and countered with a sumo move, causing both of them to collide. The entire stadium was left in shock. But wait, did anyone remember why they were here in the first place? Oh right, Otama. Holdem's men informed him about the chaos in town, but Holdem remained unfazed. He was busy using his pliers to stretch Otama's face, making her cry out in pain. Seeing this, Luffy either got furious or simply lost interest in playing around, so he sent Urashima flying with a single strike. Urashima crashed directly into Holdem's house, completely wrecking it. Laughing, Luffy said, "Ha, now the town's boss will have no choice but to show up." Zoro and Luffy realized that instead of searching for Otama, it was better to make the town's boss come to them, and that's exactly what happened. Holdem appeared on a rooftop holding Otama captive. Luffy and Holdem locked eyes, exchanging insults, but then Luffy noticed something shocking. Holdem's lion head had Otama clenched in its jaws. Holdem threatened, "One wrong move, and I'll make her my next meal." At the same time, Hawkins and Law's men were approaching the town. Okiku warned Luffy, "Luffy Dono, you must not provoke Holdem. Yes, he's strong, but the real danger lies beyond him." She added, "Holdem serves under Jack, one of the top officers of the Beast Pirates. If Holdem calls Jack here, this entire town will be destroyed in an instant." In other words, the whole town was practically being held hostage. Just then, Speed, the guardian of the food supply ship, arrived in town. The moment Luffy and Zoro laid eyes on the ship, loaded with fresh food and new clothes, they instantly knew what to do. One glance was enough. Zoro decided he would hijack the food ship. Luffy decided he would beat Holdem and rescue Otama. Holdem rallied his men for battle, but the moment they charged forward, Zoro's sword had already cut them down in an instant. At that moment, Holdem's lion head was about to crush Otama in its jaws. But before that could happen, Luffy landed a powerful punch, shattering the lion head's teeth. Otama was instantly freed. Holdem, enraged, lunged at Luffy, but by then, Zoro and Okiku had already escaped with the food ship. Luffy didn't want to waste time fighting Holdem, he just wanted to get Otama out of there. But the moment he saw Otama's reddened, swollen cheek, his rage exploded. He realized that Holdem had tortured Otama using those giant pincers. Without thinking, Luffy tossed Otama into the air, activated armament haki on his fist, and unleashed a fire-infused punch straight at Holdem. Holdem retaliated by launching a fireball from his lion head, but Luffy's haki-infused punch shattered the fire fireball midair. In the next instant, Luffy's punch landed directly on Hold'em's face, defeating him in a single hit. Hold'em was sent flying and crashed into a section of the town. Otama was in shock. For a moment, she saw Ace in Luffy, but there was no time to waste. Just as Otama started falling, Luffy swiftly caught her midair and sprinted towards Zoro. On the way, Otama effortlessly tamed speed instantly. Now, they had a fast means of transportation. When they reached Zoro's food ship, Luffy helped Otama aboard, but he didn't stop there. He ran back into town and filled a massive bowl with fresh water. Then, he distributed both the food and water among the starving villagers. Finally, Luffy returned to Otama. He pulled out a shiny red apple and placed it in her hands. Otama took a bite, and tears welled up in her eyes. "This is my best birthday ever," she said. Luffy, serious now, told her, "Don't be happy over small things. One day, all of this will be normal for you." Otama's tears fell even harder, because those were the exact words Ace had once told her, but their happiness wouldn't last long. The chaos in Bakura Town was bound to reach the ears of powerful figures soon. Kaido's men would come for them. Luffy decided it was time to head to Udon Castle. Otama rode speed back to her village, calling out, "I'll never forget this." The villagers all bowed to Luffy in gratitude, but Luffy just laughed, waved, and said goodbye. Now, Luffy and his crew set off towards Udon Castle. However, along the way, Zoro got distracted fighting a one-eyed tiger and fell behind. Finally, Luffy, Law, and Okiku arrived at the ruins of Udon Castle, where they were about to reunite with Kinemon and Sanji. There, Kinemon revealed a shocking truth. Momonosuke, Kinemon, Okiku, Raizo, and Kanjuro were actually from Wano's past. 20 years ago, they had time traveled to the present. Now, Kinemon explained everything about Wano's history, and finally, Luffy and his crew devised a grand plan to defeat Kaido. But before the final battle, they needed to find 3 key people: Ashura Doji, Kawamatsu, the Kappa Denjiro. Meanwhile, the villagers of Okobor Town were distributing the food stolen by Luffy and Zoro. But suddenly, Ashura Doji's bandit gang arrived and stole everything. Before anyone could react, Jack himself arrived. Jack and Ashura Doji clashed fiercely. Both were ready to kill each other. But then the sky suddenly darkened. A strange energy filled the air. A massive shadow appeared within the clouds. Kaido himself had arrived. From a distance, Luffy and his team saw it. A colossal dragon hovering above the village. Eyes locked onto them. Law immediately realized, Kaido is here looking for us, because Luffy and his crew had destroyed Kaido's Smile Factory and sent Doflamingo to prison. But Luffy's anger erupted. Without listening to anyone, he charged straight at Kaido. Law yelled, "Don't go! You'll put everyone in danger!" But Luffy didn't stop. At that moment, Hold'em appeared and told Kaido that Luffy and Law were hiding in Udon Castle. Without hesitation, Kaido unleashed a devastating fire breath attack, obliterating Udon Castle. Luffy saw this and lost his mind. He immediately activated Gear 2nd, using his ultra speed to reach Kaido and land a brutal punch. Kaido, in his human form, fell to the ground, but even so, he was completely unfazed. Luffy didn't stop. He activated Gear 4th and attacked with full power. But Kaido simply raised his massive Kanabo, Iron Club, and with a single swing, he struck Luffy down. In just one hit, the clouds in the sky parted. Luffy was unconscious, but his eyes were still locked onto Kaido. Kaido laughed and said, "You think you'll become king, kid?" Then he captured Luffy and sent him to Rabbit Neck Prison. In jail, Luffy was completely weakened. His hands were shackled with Sea Prism stone cuffs. The guards mocked him and shoved him around. Then, they threw him into a dark cell. There, he came face to face with Eustace Kid. Rabbit Neck Prison was a living hell. Anyone who entered never left. But whenever someone says nobody escapes from here, there's always one person who breaks the rules. And that person was Luffy. Luffy was just about to eat his dumpling when suddenly, Kid hurled a massive rock that knocked it out of his hands. Luffy looked at him and thought, "Oh, so that's how you want to play? Alright, let's do this." That day, a crazy new prisoner entered the jail. Luffy and Kid spent the entire day lifting stones. They worked so hard without stopping that even the prison guards were shocked. When Luffy and Kid slammed their reward vouchers on the table, the guards were left speechless. They both got full bowls of dumplings, but Deputy Warden Hippo Man was furious. He yelled, "How can anyone eat this much in prison?" He called Luffy and Kid over, planning to punish them. But then, Hippo Man made a huge blunder. He tried to put Luffy in his mouth, and the next scene, only screams came from Hippo Man's mouth. Luffy and Kid burst out, and Hippo Man collapsed to the ground, unable to move. Another guard down. Now, Luffy and Kid's reputation spread throughout the prison. The next day, Grandpa Hyo, Hyogoro, thanked Luffy. Luffy just laughed and said, "Forget it, it was nothing." Then, he even gave some of his extra food coupons to Grandpa Hyo. Seeing this, Luffy's respect in the prison grew even more. And at that moment, Luffy started learning a new secret attack, Ryu, but trouble was brewing. The prison guard's Scorpion Man grabbed Grandpa Hyo and started beating him. He shouted, "Tell me, who gave you these food coupons?" Luffy saw this, and his rage was about to explode. Even as he was beaten badly, Grandpa Hyo refused to give up Luffy's name. He looked Scorpion Man straight in the eyes and shouted, "No matter how much you beat me, I won't betray my friend." Luffy snapped. He rushed through the crowd and landed a powerful kick, shattering Scorpion Man's faceplate. The guards were terrified, but at that moment, Kaido's top commander, Queen, arrived at the mining site. Queen called over Elephant Man Warden and asked, "Tell me, who's been causing trouble here?" Luffy and Hyo were thrown to the ground. Now, the guards became even more dangerous. Queen made an offer. Join Kaido's army or prepare to die. Luffy and Hyo flat out refused. Queen announced a deathmatch. An arena was set up, and a deadly collar was placed around Luffy's neck. The rule was simple. Whoever steps out of the ring, their collar will explode and take their head off. And the worst part? Queen could send as many fighters as he wanted, but Queen made one more move. He removed Luffy's sea stone handcuffs. Luffy's power was now fully unlocked. The deathmatch began. Luffy unleashed a savage hockey blast, knocking out all his opponents instantly. In the second round, Queen sent even stronger fighters, but Luffy defeated them with ease. His hardcore training at the mining site had made his body even more powerful. However, Luffy still needed one thing, a technique strong enough to actually hurt Kaido. This was when Grandpa Hyo revealed a secret technique. Overseas, they call it advanced hockey, but here, we call it Ryu. Grandpa Hyo got serious. He extended his hand toward a fighter and knocked him down without even touching him. "Luffy, this is the technique that can defeat Kaido." Now, Luffy had a clear mission, mastering Ryu. Meanwhile, Raizo successfully stole the Sea Stone key, but since Luffy's handcuffs were already removed, he teamed up with a new partner, Caribou. And with that, new twists began. Using his devil fruit powers, Caribou snuck up to Luffy and gifted him a giant bucket filled with red bean soup. The next morning, the torture round Elephant Hell resumed. But this time, Queen raised the stakes. He recaptured Kid and Killer and submerged them in water. The rule was simple. As long as Luffy and Grandpa Hyo were alive, Kid and Killer would keep drowning. Luffy was furious. "Queen, I'll break you with my own hands." And then, a massive explosion. Big Mom had arrived. She was searching for red bean soup, and when she found out that Luffy had already eaten it, she lost her mind. Big Mom versus Queen. A catastrophic battle began. Luffy and Grandpa Hyo were caught in the middle of the battlefield. And the biggest danger? The deadly collars were still around their necks. Big Mom threw a powerful punch, sending Luffy and Hyo flying out of the arena. The deadly mechanism in their collars activated. In just moments, their heads would be blown off. But then, Luffy used his new haki, Ryu! He broke the collars without even touching them. Luffy survived, and his confidence soared. Grandpa Hyo then gave Luffy the real Ryu training. "If you master this, you can break through Kaido's dragon skin." Meanwhile, Queen barely managed to defeat Big Mom and dragged her out of Udon. Now, Luffy had taken over the prison. The guards had become nothing but XP farms, as Luffy used them for training. During this, Kawamatsu, the samurai Kappa, was also freed. But then, Queen's guards released a deadly virus, Plague Bomb. It turned prisoners into zombies, causing mass panic in the camp. Luffy used his own body to stop the infected prisoners. He saw that the samurai, who once wanted to fight Kaido, had given up and were now willing to serve him just to survive. Luffy roared, "You weren't born to be Kaido's slaves. You are warriors of Yoden." His fiery speech reignited their fighting spirit. The prisoners were ready to fight again. Luffy defeated the Elephant Warden, took down all the guards, and liberated the prison. But then, the prisoners faced another shocking truth. Luffy was a pirate. And to them, pirates were nothing but traitors. At this critical moment, Momonosuke stepped forward. The moment the prisoners saw Oden's son, they immediately bowed. Momonosuke delivered a powerful speech, and the samurai once again stood with the Oden family. Chopper cured Luffy's virus, and now the final battle was about to begin. 8 days later, Luffy and his allies took over Rabbit Prison and formed a samurai army. The biggest battle in One Piece history was about to begin. Luffy, Kid, and Law led their armadas toward Wano's ultimate pirate war. The Onigashima battle had begun. Kaido's army hung Momonosuke as a psychological attack on the rebellion. At that moment, Sanji activated his raid suit, went into stealth mode, and saved Momonosuke. He then engaged in an intense aerial fight against King, who used massive speed and brute force. However, Germa's advanced technology protected Sanji. Later, Sanji got caught in Black Maria's deadly trap and was brutally beaten, but he escaped and confronted Queen. During the battle, Sanji's lineage factor awakened, and he destroyed his raid suit, relying on his new indestructible body to defeat Queen. Meanwhile, Zoro reached the rooftop battle, where he and Luffy faced Kaido and Big Mom. Zoro risked his life saving Luffy from multiple attacks and then struck Kaido's old wound with a powerful flaming sword slash, shaking him. At that moment, Kaido realized Zoro also possessed Hao Shoku Haki. After a break, Zoro confronted King, a nearly invincible Lunarian and ancient Zoan devil fruit user. By finally controlling Enma and unleashing his full Haki, Zoro broke King's defense and defeated him. Elsewhere, Law and Kid awakened their devil fruits and took down Big Mom. Every Straw Hat member won their individual battles. Nami officially took control of Zeus, making her even stronger. Chopper not only created a cure for Queen's deadly virus, but also kept Queen and Prospero engaged in battle, making him a hidden MVP. Frankie piloted General Frankie to defeat Sasaki in an explosive battle, while Robin unlocked her demon mode and completely destroyed Black Maria. Jinbei defeated Fukurokuju in a powerful sumo battle, revealing more history about slavery. Finally, Luffy unlocked his full potential against Kaido. Using Ryu Haki, he damaged Kaido from within, then mastered Hao Shoku Haki, making himself even stronger. But even that wasn't enough. When When Luffy reached his absolute limit, his devil fruit awakened, transforming him into the legendary Nika. In this new mode, Luffy bent reality, turning the battle into a comical showdown. Even Kaido's strongest attacks were reversed. For the final blow, Luffy unleashed his most powerful attack, Bajrang Gun, smashing through Kaido's fire dragon form and sending him flying out of Wano. With this, Kaido and Orochi's reign over Wano was officially over, and the people were finally free.